Number 3 in these little productions of the train station at Greensburg. And this was the situation back in the 70s. By this time in the 70s, the place was no longer being used as a station, but it was still there. Now this is the place was being built at this time. And you can see by 1911 it was in use. This was the first actual opportunity that there was to have an opening. It was 1911. It had been finished by now. This is a Leroy Smeltzer photo, a good shot. You can see the vintage of the vehicles. Takes you back to probably the teens. Here we come up maybe to the late 30s or 40s. This is a shot I did in the 70s. What we're seeing here is, first of all, this tells you that you're 322 miles from Philadelphia. That's a mile marker. Over here, what you can see is the remains of the old tunnel. The tunnel was built by enlarging the area here to the uphill side, so what remained on the downhill side was part of the old wall, and it was there to keep the dirt from coming in. A woodcut I did in the 70s, and by this time the thing had fallen into disrepair. I remember people were asked to do some volunteer work, and I had volunteered to do some painting. I was painting on some of these shelters. I don't mean painting pictures. I mean just actually out there with a paintbrush and paint. Another photograph I did back in the 70s of the place. You can see it's getting overgrown and definitely needs attention. This is a shot I did in the 80s. There was a fire in there in the 80s. It was an abandoned building. And I and a friend at this time, when the fire company was there, went in and did a little bit of photography. The place really had good bones, architecturally speaking. It was really put together out of good stuff. And you can see this just looking at this photo I did around 1984. Another shot, looking down the tracks, looking at another interesting building. I've often looked at this building, the storage and transfer building, thinking that would be a great place to take over and work up as a place for artists to live and work and exhibit. This is a painting I did in the 1980s, looking at the place right on the curve of the tracks. Good shot in the wintertime. The snow really makes the place stand out. Another wintertime shot. This is from up in that big hotel that sits right beside it. You can see on the roof, there's patching on the roof. Things are not good there. It had been abandoned for quite some time, probably since the late 60s. It had not been used. This is inside in the baggage room. You can see the damage done by disuse. This is in the passenger area. This too does not look pretty at all. Looking down from the hotel again, this is from the 90s. This is 1992. Around this time, there was an attempt to do something with the place. The Westmoreland Cultural Trust got involved, and inasmuch as the place looked like this with hanging wires and debris falling down, it was pointed out that the place really deserved better than this. This was the front door of the place. You can see there were cardboard boxes and all kinds of detritus around, and this was other areas that showed neglect. Some of these pictures really need no comment. I mean, they are enough comment. You don't have to say to someone that this needs help. I mean, it's very obvious. Now this is what happened. Toward the late 90s, things were improving. The Greensburg Cultural Trust, Westmoreland Cultural Trust, became involved and got funding and worked on getting a responsible client in there to have a business going and take care of it. And there was even for a while a microbrewery in there, the Red Star Brewery. And maybe that's enough for right now, and we'll say so long. And as they say, that's all, folks.